As human beings, we have always wanted more out of our lives. Ultimately, we want to know that we are not alone and that we have a place that we can call home. We want to remember and honor those who have gone before us. We want to seek for wisdom to understand the meaning of life in the universe. And to do that, we have created places, rituals, stories, and art as a way to give life meaning and find our place in this world. We're going to climb the highest mountains and walk in the deepest shadows today as we talk about the Axis Mundi on art and belief. In so many ancient myths, legends, and stories, the universe began as a place of chaos, usually in darkness. Then a god or gods would appear, create the rest of the pantheon and the heavens as a place for them to dwell. Then one of the gods would create the earth and humans to dwell upon it as well as to worship them. In time, humans would die, and their souls would need a place to exist for all eternity, so an underworld would be made, and that would house the souls of the dead. It was always located below the ground. Lastly, a place would be created that would connect all of the realms, where humans could seek the advice and wisdom of both the gods and the dead. This site, the place that connects the worlds of the living, the dead, and the divine, is called the Axis Mundi, the central point of the universe. In Greek, the Axis Mundi was also called the Omphalos, the world navel. The Axis Mundi could be many things. In some traditions, it existed as a tree. The roots would extend through the underworld, the trunk would be planted in the mortal world, and the branches would extend far into the heavens, touching the home of the gods. Other cultures would see the Axis Mundi in the form of a sacred mountain, or the mountain could be symbolized by a sacred stone. What the Axis Mundi looked like depended on the culture that created it. Mountains are always a good fit as the Axis Mundi. By climbing the peak, humans would get physically closer to the gods. Think about Moses when he wanted to talk to God. He climbed Mount Sinai. The benefit of mountains as the site of the Axis Mundi was that mountains also have caves that descend into the earth, thus allowing transit to the world of the dead. In time, natural settings were not enough, and temples were erected on these sites, eventually becoming Axis Mundi in their own right. Some cultures recognized more than one site as the Axis Mundi. The Greeks recognized Delphi and Olympus as Omphaloi. As even more time passed, the number of Axis Mundi sites proliferated and became accessible to more people and not just elites, priests, or royals. Sacred places began to also constitute world centers, with an altar or a place of prayer as the axis. Altars, incense sticks, candles, and torches form the axis by sending a column of smoke and prayer toward the heavens. Pagoda structures in Asian temples take the form of a stairway linking earth and heaven. A steeple in a church or a minaret in a mosque also serve as connections of earth and heaven. The Kaaba is one of the best examples of an Axis Mundi in the modern world. Every day, 1 billion Muslims face this structure and pray 5 times a day. It is a tenet of Islam to visit this holy site at least once in a Muslim's life. When there, the faithful circumambulate the shrine as a sign of devotion and faith. For Jews, the Axis Mundi is what is left of the Second Temple, the Western Wall. This place is the holiest place that a Jew can pray. Often prayers are written on paper and stuffed into the cracks of the wall so as to be closer to the divine presence. Rather than recognize one holy site, Christians tend to see the Axis Mundi in the life of Jesus Christ. He was both God and man, with power to raise the dead. Christians view him as the connection and seek to access that connection by following his teachings. By doing so, they believe that they can also access the divine and overcome death. That's not to say that Christians did not continue to build sacred sites. Churches and cathedrals were built to draw the eye upward and contemplate the divine and the hereafter. Among the cities in the United States, Salt Lake City was designed to be unique. It was laid out with a grid pattern with wide streets that run in the cardinal directions. The beginning point for the city grid is the Mormon Temple, which was designed to be an Axis Mundi. Made out of the same granite as the mountains that surround it, the Salt Lake Temple stands, in Mormon theology, as the meeting point between the divine, the mortal, and those that have passed on. To further drive home the theological implications of having the Axis Mundi as the center of the city, At the southeast corner of the city block that contains the temple, known as Temple Square, the builders of the city raised a special block of stone to stand as the center of the city. It is from this point that the grid system of the city streets begins. This stone acts as the omphalos of the city. The omphalos is in the shape of a square, with the corners pointing in the cardinal directions. Surrounding the omphalos is a circular base, which is then surrounded by a granite square, which is then surrounded by another granite circle. The use of the circles and squares here is significant and highly symbolic. In many ancient cultures, circles have been used to symbolize the eternal. Circles have no beginning or end and make a good visual shorthand to represent the things that are also endless, like the gods and their home. The circle also acts as a representation of the dome of heaven. Other ancient circular symbols are the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail, which represent the same thing, things that are unending and eternal. The opposite of the circle is the square. The square represents the mortal world, the realm of humans. It does this because it has 4 sides. The physical world is often described in sets of 4. There are 4 corners of the world, 4 cardinal directions. Anciently, there were 4 elements, which we now understand are the 4 states of matter. Time itself is experienced in the passage of the 4 seasons. For these reasons, circles are said to represent the eternal, while squares represent the mortal. In art, we see this duality play out. In medieval Christian art, halos represent the light of a holy person radiating from their head. Most often, the halo is circular, because the saints being represented had died and entered the eternal realm of heaven. But occasionally, a living person was depicted, in which case they received a square halo, because they were still mortal when the artwork was completed. So when artists and architects combine a circle and a square, it represents the union of heaven and earth, the divine and mortal, or in other words, the Axis Mundi. The most famous place this shows up in Western art is Da Vinci's sketch, The Vitruvian Man. The Vitruvian Man is literally about how humanity is the center point of creation, halfway between the divine and the animal. In this drawing, Da Vinci proclaims humanity itself as the Axis Mundi. How else does this impact art? When you see a dome, it represents the heavens, the realm of the gods. When you see an artificial mountain, you know it was a place designed for humans to commune with the divine or the dead, or both. When you see squared circles, you know that this place was meant for the heavenly and the earthly to come together. When you see places that were designed to be microcosms of the universe, you know that this place was meant to be something beyond the ordinary. Humans have always craved more. A place to interact with and remember those that have passed on, to seek wisdom and enlightenment, and to see the face of the divine. We strive for the best in ourselves and to find meaning and a place in this universe. We construct places, rituals, and images to remind ourselves that life has meaning and that ultimately we are not alone. And in these ways, we find, make, and at last are able to come home.